Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Convery, where we explore the stories and insights of some remarkable individuals. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Amanda Cupido, an award-winning podcast producer, TEDx speaker, author, and entrepreneur. Amanda is the founder of Lead Podcasting, a company dedicated to developing podcasts for thought leaders and organizations. She authored the Amazon bestseller, Let's Talk Podcasting, The Essential Guide to Doing It Right, and she's redefined radio courses at both Seneca College and Toronto Metropolitan University as a part-time university professor. With a background in journalism, a master in psychology of leadership from Penn State University, Amanda's expertise in strategic communications has made her a sought-after trainer and speaker globally. And I'm so happy to invite my friend Amanda to the podcast. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
So excited to see you this, I guess, snowy afternoon or morning here in
Yeah,
Toronto. But maybe what we'll start with is a few rapid fire questions just to get the audience warmed up to know who you are.
sounds
Uh,
good.
what's your superpower?
I would say thriving off live audiences and busy rooms.
Awesome. I've seen you in action. I agree.
Thanks.
This one I love because it's so like out there about the senses. But what is your favorite smell?
Ooh, I love lavender.
Mm,
So I have lavender, dried lavender around. I have a lavender pillow spray. I'm a lavender fan.
a lavender gal. There you go.
hmm
Thinking about your work and everything you've done, I mean, you've impacted so many people, including myself, and I want to thank you for that. But what is the best compliment you've ever received?
I was departing from a leadership role. This is the first thing that came to my mind. I've
Yeah.
had so many kind things said to me, but like the first thing that popped into my head was I was leaving a big leadership role and multiple people said the same compliment, which already I was like, wow, this is just giving real truth to this. And it was, thank you for everything you did for this organization, but thank you for what you did for me. And it was so nice. Like that made me cry because it was showing that as a leader. And that's how I wanted to show up. I wanted to think about the team and the larger unit, but I also wanted to give, individualized support to help people with career growth and meeting them where they're at. And so that was just like such a great compliment, leadership compliment for me. Yeah.
That's that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love that.
Thanks.
Uh, we all have our guilty pleasures or snacks or maybe healthy treats, but what's your go-to snack?
Okay, so I'm a savory gal, so I do love, like, honestly, just a piece of bread, and I'm Italian. Bread with some olive oil. Wow, I'll eat the whole loaf. That is, I'm so happy with that. That's my ideal snack for sure.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, a really good loaf like
Like
is
warm, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Do you have a
Dipping it
specific
in.
bread? Like, do you go for like
Oh, I'm very bread inclusive. I love all breads. Um,
I know
so
that's so nice to have like a nice crusty loaf. I get it. I get it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Started somewhere. We all did. What was your first job?
My first ever job was working as a swimming instructor. And you have to be 16 to work, but there was some, or I don't know now how, if it's changed, but I was 15 and getting paid. And they labeled me as an assistant swimming instructor to get away with it. As long as I was like with an actual one, then I was allowed to do it. And then as soon as I turned 16, they promoted me into the full glory of an individual swimming instructor. So that was
I
my
love
first
that.
paid gig. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, thinking about describing yourself, if you had to pick one word, what would you pick?
I think bright
Yeah.
because my energy is bright, but also I love wearing bright colors and I love bright rooms. I'm the one to like leave all the lights on. So literally liking it bright. Like I want light. Hate sitting in a dark room.
All
So
right. Bright it
that's it.
is. Bright it
Yeah.
is. In every which way.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Your background is so impressive and interesting, and I think our audience is going to just get so much out of this conversation. So you and I, although we could talk, we're gonna have to make sure we stick to it
You
so we
know,
don't make it be 3 hours. But anyways, career journey, jump into it. Share your journey from starting as a journalism student to becoming award winner podcaster, producer, and entrepreneur. Like, how did it all start?
I know it's a non-linear career for sure, and you could not have mapped it. And so I'll start off even by saying I was one of those students who tried to map 10 steps ahead. I was trying to strategically plan everything. And I so quickly learned that you just can't do that, especially in an industry like mine that's very quickly evolving. And so I really had to lean into like day by daying it. And also, what I learned was that I don't know what future Amanda wants or needs.
Mm.
Only she will know. So I can't plan for her. So I started off studying journalism, thinking I was going to go into TV. Like my initial plan was to be on the morning show as the like on location reporter. That was my ideal goal for jobs and doing like lighthearted stories. And so I went into journalism. I started doing some writing. Some of my first gigs were actually freelance writing. So even that was already a little bit of a departure, but I was doing it and enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then I did always love audio and I loved radio, but I went into a journalism program and I loved FM radio, like the disc jockey quick bits. And I kind of felt like that was too far. Yeah, exactly. Like music and skits and contests. And I felt that was already a little bit far off from my journalism studying. So I parked that. But anyway, I ended up getting a TV internship. Again, I thought I was going to go into TV, and I really didn't love it. It was not what I thought it would be. It was on a show that I really admired and is no longer on the air today, but I actually really disliked it. And I went,
Yeah.
uh-oh, my whole plan is foiled. I don't know. What am I doing now? I didn't like that. And so I went back to those radio ties. I was doing some podcasting on the side. It was kind of coming up and I was experimenting with it with a magazine that I was writing for. And so at the time I was a student, I was writing for them. And then I said, why don't we do a podcast? This word was barely being used. And this is now in like 2009. I'm pitching this concept of a podcast, starting to make one, for as a volunteer. Ended up getting an internship, did my internship in TV, but then got a gig while I was a student doing fill-in radio producing at a talk radio station. And honestly, if you had told me I was going to land at a talk radio station, I would have told you, heck no. I don't keep up with the news enough. I don't know. Like it would have been so far out of my realm. And then, little did I know I had a really amazing career in talk radio. I ended up working as a producer, a reporter, a news anchor. I just would have never dreamed any of this. And eventually the first woman to be a program director at a radio station in Toronto, which is amazing. So, that's a trajectory that even when I was a producer, I would have never thought I'd land as a program director. Like I continued to surprise myself. Along that time, I was also making podcasts on the side, really falling in love with audio as a career. I did a quick departure in FM radio just to scratch that itch. I spent some time as a morning show co-host, but again, surprised myself. Of all radio, that's what I would have chosen as what I would have probably landed in. And then I went, uh-oh, no, I like talk radio better. I want to talk for 10 minutes on the radio, not just 30 seconds in between songs. I need more time. So went back to talk, like really, bounced around a bit in the radio space, making podcasts on the side. I ended up taking a couple jobs in the communication and digital content space, started really championing social media at the radio stations I worked at, then did social media for clients. And so really all of this was happening sometimes simultaneously. At one point I was working at a digital content agency Monday to Friday, and then I was working Saturday and Sunday at the radio station. I was just working 7 days a week because I loved it. It wasn't even, I was okay with my full-time job. I just loved all of it. And anyway, so a lot of just experimenting and landed with starting my own podcast production company in 2020, which was pandemic year. And I had a big decision to make. I was working in communications at the time, doing podcasting on the side, and I just saw the industry evolving. I had written my first edition of my book at that time. I was getting asked to do podcasts. I was scared to take the plunge. But as soon as I said, all right, I'm going to go for this full time, I became so busy. Within 2 months, I incorporated a business. Within 6 months, I hired my first full-time employee. And yeah, and we've just been growing ever since. So a little bit of a windy path, but
Oh, no, but
yeah,
see what I love about that and what's great for people listening to this podcast is you can set out a plan, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go that way. And when it
no,
doesn't go that way, it's not going that way maybe for a reason. And
yeah,
I love your testing and trying things too, which is what life's about. It's all about discovery. It's all about figuring out what you do like, what you don't like. And the only way you're going to do it is to try try the
exactly.
things,
You
right?
don't know until you try.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Let's talk about mentorship because, so much of the world we live in, whether it's sponsorship, mentorship, coaching, you know, throughout your career, I assume you've had mentors that have really stood out to you and have it had an impact on your professional growth. What advice would you give to those seeking mentorship, maybe even in the media industry, if there's someone listening to this?
I think in the beginning, I thought of mentorship as this like capital M mentorship. We are meeting on a routine and we are gonna have a framework. Yeah, we got some worksheets to do.
Structure.
And I kept being like, I want a mentor. I want one of those programs. And what I didn't realize is actually there were so many people around me helping me. They were, and whether you want to call them a mentor, a sponsor, a guide, a coach, a leader, there were people championing me. And I also in
Or,
my head thought it had to be like one person who does a holistic me. And what I learned was actually there's some people who I can go to when I'm just like down in the dumps and needing a pick me up. And they're gonna just like boost me up. There's some people who are gonna give me tough love, but sometimes you need that. And they're gonna like take out the paperwork with me and go shoulder to shoulder and do the work with me. There's some people who are just gonna be able to help me zoom out, look at things big
mhm.
picture, challenge my assumptions, right? And so I think in the place that I am now, I have a collection of people that I really respect and that I lean on in certain ways and at different frequencies. And so I would encourage if for anyone listening to think about building a community of people you can
I
go
like
to.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it's really starting to, because we have built mentorship to be this like capital M. I love how you stated that. And
Yeah.
also one person to do everything. And
Yeah.
that's not how the world works. And I think what you're saying, community is, I think we need to start talking about community people
Yeah.
because we talk about your tribe. And when you find your tribe, those people are mentors,
Yeah.
colleagues, friends, all of the things, right?
Yes, exactly. And I
Yeah.
and I was paying for also sometimes like these big fancy mentorship programs and I realized actually the best people were the people that were already surrounding me and I didn't have to go through those to
Yeah.
find
Look
people to
around you, I guess is
Right.
the
Yeah, so
message,
just look
right?
that's what I'd say, look around you. Who are the people
Okay.
you're calling or you could call?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump into strategic communications. And, you have, led you to train executives worldwide, which is great. Can you discuss from your perspective the importance of effective communication and leaderships and what is some of the strategic strategies you teach?
Oh, that's a big question. Okay, I think number one is really understanding where your audience is at. And so as you communicate as a leader, you could have all those great ideas of things you want to share, but you have to understand the mind space of the people you're talking to,
Mm,
the headspace. Really put yourself in those shoes. And cuz I've had to because I've worked with leaders around the world, I also think that you're so accustomed to your own home and your own people and your own audiences. And when you're supporting someone anywhere else, you really realize the differences that can be and then we make assumptions a lot when we're creating communications. So I love to encourage leaders to put themselves in the audience's shoes,
great.
be as real and raw as you can, as you're comfortable with. I think people really gravitate and like this is how I live, being authentic to yourself and not being afraid to admit you don't know something or that you made a mistake and having that authenticity to you actually gains you more respect. Sometimes people think if I share that I'll look weak. It's actually what gains trust and ultimately makes you stronger. So
That's
overcoming
great.
that and there's so much research out that proves that now, but I've seen it firsthand. And not to be afraid to change. Maybe you did something a certain way and you communicated a message through a 50-minute, 1 hour speech every year. And maybe just because that landed and worked well 5 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't mean it's going to always work. And so being open to shifting, adjusting, trying new things, opening up. And the biggest thing, and it's like always a no-brainer, but I always feel like I have to remind leaders to ask their audiences or their team what they want. They're trying to think of what should we do as a mentorship program? What should we do as a reward program? Why don't you do a survey and just ask the people, ask the team what they want. You ask them. They can just build what they ask for. It's so easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you almost go into a corner and like try to engineer something and you don't even know if it's on point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two-way
no, good
dialogue. Open it
good
up.
point. Good point. Lead podcasting. Congratulations, first of all, on everything you're doing, and it's such a pleasure to have the queen of podcasting
Oh,
on my
thank you.
podcast and to have you here. I mean,
I love
it's
it.
incredible what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about, I'm thinking about people listening who maybe want to have, a lot of people want to get into podcasting, start a podcast, whatever. And I know your book is chock full, so I definitely want to talk about that in a few minutes and we'll give
Yeah.
it a good promotion. But what, maybe the challenges and the opportunities. I mean, with your own company, how's that been?
Oh, within my own company. I mean, the challenges are truly blazing a trail in an industry that didn't exist. Um, with having an educational background that taught me great foundations of storytelling, but I'm running a business. I mean, I'm learning
Yeah.
entrepreneurship as I go. And in an area where, and that's where another place, even with the mentorship to tie it back, I was like, so do I try to find someone who's running a podcast company as my mentor so they can help me? But that didn't really, everyone who's doing it is technically my competitor. Like there was no retired podcast production agency CEOs that I could go ask to be my mentor, right?
Right.
So I of course still would want people in the creative industry who understand agency life, but there was no one that I looked up to be like, I want to be that when I grow up. Like it just this role did not exist. So you're just blazing every trail on every front. And so it's a challenge. It's an interesting challenge. It's a fun challenge. Some days, some days it's very tiring. But that's definitely what I would say is the challenge. And some of the joys really is being able to lift people's voices and hearing people say for the first time, I love my voice. I never loved my voice and now I love my voice. That's so heartwarming. We have some incredible stories being shared that I'm like, this deserves to be out in the world. And so I'm happy to be able to bring life to those stories and share those stories more widely. And our mission is connecting communities around the world through audio storytelling. So that's what drives us.
Yeah, and I think recently, even hearing you talk about some of this when I saw your book launch too, is the technology advancing this world of like now you can even tap into your voice being shared in multiple languages,
Yeah,
right?
so
Like
exciting. So
there's so
exciting.
many cool things that are coming in support of what you do, and but again, it's just keeping in tune with what's going on in the market, what's the intel, what's happening, right? Opportunities, really cool. Thank you. The other thing I want to jump into is teaching. I think that's such a wonderful profession, and I also think the way that you have real practical knowledge of what you've been doing to share with students, you know, I just really think it's incredible. And we know that post-secondary is going through a bit of a shift right now, and there's a lot of challenges happening. And what do you think maybe about the future of audio education evolving? Like, what are your any thoughts around it? Like how you do things now and where it might go to?
It will for sure be leveraging AI technology. We already are at my company and it will more. I'm not in denial about that. I'm excited by that. And jobs will be lost and jobs will be gained. New ones will exist. So it's okay. It's part of the evolution. I'm teaching upcoming my next teaching assignment is generative AI for communicators with Seneca
No, really?
Polytechnic. And I'm developing this class. It's a brand new class, first time ever taught. Yeah. So I'm so excited because as a communicator myself, I am using it. And so I'm able to still draw upon my everyday work, but in a little bit of a different space. I also got a certificate from the University of Oxford in AI for business. And so I'm excited to leverage that learning and bring it to Canada and help prepare the next batch of professionals who will be defining the industry, who will be creating these jobs. I imagine, and just like I was in social media coming up where I was making the social media accounts for a lot of these radio stations. And I worked in the nonprofit space in social media, and I was saying the job title should be this. I was literally pitching the job descriptions, making the job here's what I do every day, and like
Yeah.
writing it down so they could see. And I think the next crop of professionals will be doing that with AI, saying, all right, managers will be like, what are you doing? And then they're going to have to create the jobs of tomorrow. It's such an exciting position to be in, potentially overwhelming at times, but exciting. And I had been in many roles where I was like, I don't have a job description. I'm just going. and
Right.
and I had to be the one who advocated to say, this is what I want my title to be. And like, look at what I do every day. But that was the nature of the job. I was doing stuff that they didn't even know they needed, or they didn't even know was really how we got, it was the roadmap from A to Z. And I was telling them what was happening in between. And that's the job description. So I think it's exciting. And so for teaching, yeah, I want to be able to empower students to feel comfortable in that like gray, in that unknown, and embracing defining it and giving them the tools, the foundational tools to be able to go into these roles and to thrive and to feel confident experimenting, feel okay with failing, learning from mistakes, knowing how to pivot, and advocating for themselves and for what they believe is right so that we can define how we use this technology for good.
Love it. Love it. Amazing, amazing insights and feedback. Thank you so much on that. Okay, your book.
Yeah.
All right, this is a chance to promote the book. People that
Woo.
are thinking about getting into podcasting or just understanding communications better or whatever. But tell us about, yeah, how it all came together and where things are with it.
Yeah. So the book first came out in 2018, and then in November 2024, second edition, long overdue, but we have it now. It's out in the world, which is amazing. And just recently, it's also available as an ebook and audiobook too. So in all formats, it took me 7.5 hours to read this thing in one sitting out loud for the audiobook. So there you go. If you really want to read the whole thing in a day, you definitely can. And so the book has 5 sections to it. And I think this is important to bucket the information that's in the book, but also just in general, what I think people need to know as
Sure.
they are wanting to learn more about the medium. So the first is the foundation. It's just the evolution of the industry, how we got to where we are today, and some of the stats. The second part is what's out there, and I talk about best practices, some notable shows. Third part is what's next, so the future. I make some predictions, and I allude to some of the technology and how it's changing the industry. Part 4 is doing it yourself. So once you understand all that, and I do think it's important to take the time to have some foundational knowledge before you start planning your own podcast, then because even just listening to others, you get ideas for what you might want in yours. Doing it yourself is where I get into the nitty gritty, step by step. Here you go, equipment recommendations. And then part 5 is how I did it. I pull back the curtain and do some case studies on shows I made and what were some of the tactics I took to see success.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for highlighting some of that because it also gets into people's heads around how to process and think about this overall.
There's a lot
Um,
out there. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, so we're getting close to the end here, I know, but what I'm thinking is maybe is there anything when you're thinking about some of the young talent and people listening to this today, communications is such a critical skill to have, and in the world of uh, all types of all types of industries and sectors. But I was curious, like from your perspective, is there anything you wanted to share with the listeners? And maybe it's communication, maybe it's a different angle, but of something you want to leave them with today that they might want to think about as they're pursuing their dreams.
First off, I would say do not be so hard on yourself. I think we're all too hard on ourselves, and including me. And We got to give ourselves some grace. We're all trying our best out there. And it's not to say you shouldn't learn from your mistakes, but it's knowing that you're probably being too hard on yourself, just in general. And that was something I was definitely having to work on and continue to do so. Um, and second is with regard to dreaming and chasing your dreams, we use these words and like, what is the dream? And I think I used to think of the dream as like a specific job, a specific title. I had this like
Mm,
very specific thing, which was, as I mentioned, changed in an instant. Then I got, my first TV job and I went, well, poof, there goes that dream. Now what? What's my dream now? And it's like that even having the shattering of a dream can be really jarring. And so instead of dreaming of a title or dreaming of a role, I would say dream of a way of life and how you want to show up in the world. How do you want to live a life? And do you want to be working 5 days a week or not? Do you want to be able to travel while work or stay? Think about qualitative aspects of your life.
mm.
Do you want to be controlling your schedule or not? Do you like having an office and a larger team, or do you like to work a little more solo, right? Think about these kinds of elements of work. I mean, I'm doing it with dreaming for work, but also you could do this for your life.
Absolutely.
And I did this amazing exercise with my therapist, actually. So, where she was just like, think of your life 10 years from now, and what is your perfect day? How does it start? And in my experiment, I said, it starts with me sitting at a nice dining room table with a piece of toast and orange juice with my husband. And she's like, amazing. Why don't you have a piece of toast and orange juice in the mornings with your husband now? And I was like, you're right. Like, I don't know. We don't do it. But that was this like idealistic part of my dream. And so at the point of the exercise is what small steps can you take to make that dream life closer and closer to your reality? And dreaming of it less more of a holistic picture rather than just like a job.
That's incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
Amanda, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for being on Coffee with Convery with me and sharing so many insights and ideas for our listeners. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time out of your day to be a part of this. Thank you.
Of course, anytime.
Awesome. So, for our listeners, if you liked what you heard today, please share this podcast on your channels that you listen to most with your friends. You can follow Coffee with Convery on Instagram as well, where we list all of our episodes. This has been Coffee with Convery, and until next time, please stay well.